All right. Hey everyone, Mark here. Thank you for joining me for another Greenbridge Investing market analysis session. So we have a few things to go over here. I want to talk about some stocks that are on our watch list. Andrew's been sharing them in the chat room, but most importantly in this pre-NFP context. Okay, NFP is a very important report. So I want to talk about that. Plus I want to touch on Bitcoin because we got stopped out of that, and talk about some of the alts, and I had some requests for some forex pairs and stuff in the chat room as well. So we're going to cover that. So, hey DJ. So as you know how this works, if you have any symbol or market that you would like to see, please share it in the chat now, so that once I complete my analysis, I can get to the symbols that you want to see specifically. Okay. And also, a quick announcement. I sent out an email earlier today with some stocks and a stock in Bitcoin and Monero and all that. If you're a member of Greenbridge Investing, you should have received that email. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because I put a survey in that email. And if you have not answered it, please fill out the questions. There's only 3 questions and they're really quick. We need that feedback so that we can provide an even better experience for our members going forward. So if you have not received that email, please check your spam folder, but you should have, and please fill out that survey. We've gotten some great responses and a lot of good constructive points for us to work on. So thank you all for that. All right, so with all that, let's get started. This is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. Now, let's go straight to the stocks, okay? Right, no, and that's right, DJ. For as far as the markets go, the way the survey works, first we just ask for just a general rating. The second question is just pick one market that you want to see more trade signals in, just one. So I want to see the majority of what people say. Like if it's stocks and options, then we'll focus on more stocks and options signals. Okay, but you may want like stocks and more Bitcoin too. But we want to see what the most people say on that. And then the third one is just any type of ideas that you may have or feelings that you may have that would help us add more value to the subscription that you have. You know, because we really want to make the best experience possible, especially going into the next couple of months. We want to make some changes with the chat room and stuff like that. We want to make sure that we're doing it in line with what people want. Okay, so, all right, so let's get into, first thing I want to get into is some of these stocks, okay? Now, as you can see on the title, I mentioned Tesla, NIO, NKLA, and OPRX. So let's start with those, and then we're going to get to Bitcoin and all those. So let's begin with Tesla. Obviously, it's a very popular stock. Everyone always talks about this. And, you know, Andrew had mentioned something about, you know, some possibilities. Here's the thing. I don't like this stock where it is right now. You know, it's coming off this higher low, but the only thing I see here is a consolidation, okay? I see a high established way up here at 500. I see a low established way over here at, what is that, 325 area. I see a higher low and a potential area for a lower high. That's a consolidation. So I really, really would not want to buy the higher part of that range. If anything, I'd rather see another consolidation low, all right, for a higher probability type of trade. Now look, this thing can break out, especially if the NASDAQ and the S&P go, and they're trying, okay? I was surprised to see the recent strength in the S&P and the NASDAQ because they're holding up, okay? And this thing can benefit in that if they continue to. So with something like this, if you're interested in Tesla, the best way to deal with this situation is to go in with smaller size. That's how you can adjust for the elevated risk, because if this thing fakes out, this zone, if you see that blue box that I have on my chart, that's a resistance zone, and it's basically right back in that area. So although today's candle looks pretty decent, you know, what if tomorrow is an outside bar, you know, after NFP? What if we get, you know, a bearish outside bar tomorrow like that? That's going to basically establish the high of the consolidation again. You don't want to get caught in that, especially with a position that will make you uncomfortable. So if you normally trade 100 shares, trade 15 shares or something like that. And also it'd probably be a good idea if you at least wait for the breakout. So is the stock strong? Yeah, these consolidations are typically trend continuation patterns, and Tesla is definitely in a bullish trend. There's no question. But we're talking about, probability and swing trades. I'm not talking about investments here. And the high probability prices are in the low, mid to high 300s. Okay, just something to keep in mind. A lot of times, trade ideas begin with knowing where your levels are, not reacting to what's going on right now. All right, so that's Tesla. Now, let me jump over to NIO, which is obviously NIO. This is, I believe they're in the same business, right? They make cars or whatever they make. I don't really care much about fundamentals. I'm only interested in the chart. So, in a situation like this, the first thing I want to take a look at are the inflection points, right? And this thing broke out. We actually have a position in this. And playing these breakouts is not easy because you can get caught in the failed high area, which is what we're in right now. That's the failed high area. And you can see prices hesitating. But what's good about this is it's not selling off quickly. It held yesterday's low, which was what? Basically 20 and a half. Okay, today's low is 20.85 and we're holding. Okay, so far so good. Now, I'm mentioning these stocks pre-NFP because they're not really doing anything dramatic today. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with NFP, it's Non Farm Payrolls. It's the most important economic report that is scheduled each month. It's the first Friday of every month. So tomorrow is the first Friday. At 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the report is released. Now, typically, it's a non-event. Typically, there's a little action in the beginning, and then it's just pretty much nothing. But if there are any dramatic surprises, not only will it affect the NASDAQ and the S&P and the dollar, but stocks, gold, everything will be dramatically affected. The reason why I'm really focusing on this one is because we're getting closer and closer to the election. And I'm not sure what the date of the next NFP is, but it's going to be right around Election Day. It's going to be very close to it. So that's important because the current administration is going to do whatever they can to make things look good. I mean, that's just what they do. So you have to be prepared for that. But if there are any negative surprises, you can see a lot of market drama, and you don't want to get caught in it. That's my whole point. So for a stock like NIO, if you're not in this, okay, if you're in it, look, you're in it, and you have to just let the trade play out. Just like our Monero trade, just like our Bitcoin trade, which I'm going to talk about also. If you're not in it, then the next best thing to do is wait for an inflection point. And right now, that's the next inflection point. It's a minor support, and that level happens to be around what? Basically the 19.5, 20 area. And we're today at 21.73. This thing is right now. So if this thing could test that old resistance, it's likely to be a new support. If you get a confirmation there, oh, thanks, DJ. See, I figured DJ would look that up. November 6th. Is that? I'm not sure. When is Election Day? Is it November 3rd? Because that's interesting. NFP comes out after Election Day. It's something I should know, right? I don't even know because I don't pay attention to that. Okay, cool. So that means that tomorrow is the next NFP before the election, right? And again, that can be a very dramatic piece of information, right? It doesn't matter what political side you take. None of that matters. What matters is how the market interprets it. And it can be a big dramatic event or it could be nothing, all right? We prefer nothing because then it doesn't change our plans and we don't have to make any adjustments. So again, back to NIO, this would be a better spot to buy it if you're not in it. If it clears this spot, if it clears 20, which it can, okay, when, maybe some news will come out specific to NIO, I don't know, but that's usually what will spark such a move, then the next area would really be the range low, all right, which is around what is that? The 16.5 area, something like that. That area would be the high probability location. Basically, it's relative to this old resistance, which should act as a new support. So, that's the outlook for NIO. keep that in mind. I don't think you'll see that in like one day. I don't think you'll see that type of move. That could take like a week to play out. Okay, but in 1 or 2 days, you can see the test of 20.5. So keep that in mind if you're interested in the stock. This stock is clearly bullish. Okay, there's nothing bearish about this structure. It's got higher lows and higher highs written all over it. So even if it consolidates a little bit more or tests that old resistance, new support, it's likely to push higher, especially in a strong stock market. Okay, so that's NIO. Now, we had another one, OPRX. This one was asked about in the chat room. This is a stock that I mentioned in one of my sessions here and not too long ago. And also we're going to take a look at NKLA. I forgot that one, NKLA. But OPRX, they basically do like pharmaceutical scheduling or something like that. I don't know. I don't care about that. Again, what I care about is it broke this consolidation. That is what matters. Keep in mind, I'm not talking about investments. I'm talking about swing trades. And as a swing trader, I'm only interested in momentum, short-term momentum. I don't care where this thing is in a year. I care about where it is in the next couple of days to the next couple of weeks, as long as it's not touching my stop. That's all I care about, okay? So right now, it cleared this consolidation. And this area here, what's the high? 2074 is this high right here. As you can see, it's finding support there now. Today's low is 2062. It also it's closing with this, it's not an outside bar, but it's a nice bullish candle. Okay, so here, let me make that a little bigger for you. This is a continuation pattern. It's a momentum continuation pattern. So, you know, should you get into something like this right now? It's kind of a tough spot, but if the momentum follows through, meaning if this higher low that was established right here around that 20.5 level stays intact, this thing will probably push for a higher high. You know, now how much higher can that thing go? You know, I haven't done any projections on it, so I don't know. And it doesn't look like, these look like, you know, these are pretty much all-time highs where it's fooling around right now. But if you have to look at it in terms of risk, okay? If you buy this thing right now at 21.38, okay, and the low is 20.62, you're looking at, you know, probably about $1 of risk. It's usually a good idea to give it a little extra room. You don't want to put your stop at the exact low. So you're about $1 risk. So if you could make at least $1 in the trade, then it's somewhat worthwhile. Can this thing run another $1? Yeah, I think it's within reason. So, you know, it's more ideal if you can get more, like 1.5 to 1 or 2 to 1. So that's one way to gauge something like this. Because until a sell signal appears, you know, you buy it and you just hope for the best. That's really all you can do. And there's no sell signal in there right now. So just something to keep in mind if you're in it. If you're interested in this, again, your risk is defined by that 20.5 low. If NFP comes out bad tomorrow for whatever reason, you know, and this thing starts pushing that 20.5, you should not hold on to it. Okay, just that's the idea. I'm not giving trade ideas here. I'm just giving like some perspective. If you want to use your discretion on that one, you know, that's up to you. Okay, so now let's take a look at NKLA. This is NKLA. Again, similar to, you know, they make the whatever vehicles like Tesla, whatever. Okay, I guess a competitor. As you can see, this recent price action, not so great, right? It's much more negative, much more bearish momentum. It's not exactly a bearish trend. I mean, we can almost argue that it is because there are lower highs and lower lows, but this broad structure has not been cleared. I mean, that'd be kind of tough to clear though, because this thing would have to go like below, I guess, 10 to really say, okay, forget this thing. All right, but so it's basically the bearish structure that we see is just a corrective move relative to this vertical move, right? And here we are now. So this one's been on our radar, and as for looking for a long, obviously. And look at this pop. Someone had asked about this the other day, and I said, well, you know, you got to be careful with it. And then, you know, we got this candle, which is basically the first sign. That's, you know, you can take an aggressive trade in such a situation, but it's counter. I don't want to say counter trend because the trend implies the entire thing, but I will say counter momentum, because the momentum, especially the more recent momentum, is bearish. So when you take a trade like that, the payoff can be, well, it can be really good if it works, but you're taking a great risk because the momentum's working against you. This can easily turn into a lower high, okay? And you better believe if people that are shorting this, they're going to short this and they're going to look for the lower low because their smaller time frame charts are going to tell them to do that and all that other stuff. So this is the initial move. If this is going to break the bearish momentum and start to run, it has to begin with the initial move. The initial move is the highest risk, all right? For example, what if you started buying it over here and you're like, all right, I got the bottom of NKLA. Yeah, great. Okay, cool. That was the initial move. And then it couldn't hold, and then you got either stopped out or you got caught in it, right? That's why the initial move is the higher risk move to get involved with. So what you want to see on something like this is the follow-up move or the higher low. If this thing is going to start to go and build a bullish structure over the next couple of weeks, I would want to see the higher low. So if you're not in this, don't worry about it. You're not missing anything. If you're in it, you just have to hope now that this thing can at least put something together. And what I would also do is if it starts to push like higher and starts to look amazing, take money off the table. Because that lower high, in order to prove itself, this thing at some point needs to make a higher low or test that bottom again and produce a broad double bottom or slightly failed low, which would provide the highest probability opportunities in something like this if you get that formation. But we don't know if it's going to deliver that. So something to keep an eye on this thing. This is probably a great options play as well. I don't know what the options are. I haven't looked at the options on this one. But if they're cheap, again, 2 or 3 months out and they're cheap, just like Sierra Wireless, you can get some really cheap options. And if it works, it's like a home run type of trade. All right, just remember, long options are usually, they're working against you most of the time. So front month are especially a bad idea. All right, if you don't know options, don't even forget everything I just said. All right, now, so that's NKLA, NKLA. Now let's take a look. I want to take a look at, there were a couple other mentions in the chat room. Let me see, which one was it? We had some forex. We also had, well, let me see. Let me just think for a minute. We had, I got to take a look at Bitcoin. Oh, yeah, NIO, and then there was mRNA. This one was asked about. And this one, this one has been on our radar. We've been in this one on and off. And this one, right, I can tell you right from looking at this here, we're in the middle of the range, right? This is our range low right here, around that 56.25 area. And here's our range high. This is not the range high, this is the range high, because this is an extreme move and it gave it back really quick. So I'd rather look for something a little more, a lot of times when you get these little moves before, like it's kind of close in the same area, usually like the whole area becomes resistance. People, what they like to do is they like to have the exact high and they say, okay, that's the exact high and that's what I'm going to use as resistance. There is no exactness in markets. So it's good a lot of times to sort of get an average area, okay? So we're in the middle. If you notice, we're in the middle of the area. Now we have a higher low established over here, which is good. That's a good sign. But taking this thing now, buying this thing now, is just, it's a 50-50 type of trade because you're in the middle. This might go higher, it might go lower, right? Just like Bitcoin was in that position as well. It's more like 50-50. There's really no advantage or there's no favorable probability here. Now you could take your chances and say, all right, I'm going to play poker here and hope for the best, but that's usually not a good idea. So what I would wait for on something like this is either a test of this low over here, right? Basically look for a failed low relative to that previous low, which is what is that area there? The 63 area, something like that, or maybe the high 62s. That would be one inflection point. The other would be here for a double bottom or failed low. Will the market deliver that? I have no idea. The question is, if the market delivers, then you need to be prepared with your plan. That's where good trades come from. You're prepared because you evaluated your levels in advance. You're not reacting to stuff now. That's usually a bad idea. Keep in mind, there are going to be many shorts that are going to try to pile into this thing, they're going to view this as a lower high. Okay, so I would just stay away from that on the long side altogether. And we typically don't short these type of stocks. Okay, so good question there. Now let me get into real quick. Let me get into the forex pairs, because then I want to talk about our Bitcoin swing trade, and then I'm going to get to all the things in the channel here. Let me just say hi to a few people. Hey Chris, hey pal, nice to see you. Thanks for joining me. DJ, of course. TZ, hey TZ. Oh, okay. Sure. You know, sorry about that, TZ. You know, sometimes they just kind of, I don't know what happens to them. So I'll check that and I'll make sure that that's taken care of. Thank you for letting me know. All right. And so let's get into this. Hey, Mike, nice to see you. All right, cool. So a couple of forex pairs. Okay. So dollar franc was asked for, USD CHF. Come on, USD CHF, and also dollar Canadian. Now the dollar Canadian we had a trade in recently. Dollar franc, we watched this one carefully. We like this pair. It got an inflection point right there. Now we've been talking about the dollar recovery. We were a little early on it, like I've mentioned before. Now it's tricky, okay? Because what we have to focus on, yes, we're getting some bullish structure developing here. This is developing into a higher low, okay, after this break of resistance, which is a change in momentum, okay? That's a start. But we can't ignore this. We just can't ignore it completely, because this is where things get tricky. When I look at the inverse pair, okay, euro dollar, that's bullish, okay? So if that's bullish, that dollar franc can't go higher. I mean, it just can't. This is bullish. So not only is that stronger, that structure bullish, but these inflection points are key structural supports. We took out one, right? We tried to anyway, but it recovered quickly. Not only that, but it's now trying to develop into a little higher low situation off of that area, which happens to be 1680s, somewhere around there. And look at this outside bar that's trying to develop here. Now, NFP will obviously play a big role in this because NFP affects the dollar. So we'll see how this plays out tomorrow, and I would expect that these pairs will be very quiet going into that, right? Like today is really like, can't really do anything with this price action today. Now, shorter time frame traders are going to argue that this is a lower high and that this thing's bearish. It might be, but it really depends on that NFP outcome. The dollar, now if we kind of talk about fundamentals here, just an aside, I don't follow fundamentals, but it is in the best interest of the U.S. government, especially the administration right now. It is in their best interest to have a weak dollar, right? Because it's good for business at home. So if they're doing things and they're keeping policy very loose, which is what Chairman Powell has, keeps hinting toward and all that kind of stuff, the dollar is likely to continue lower, and these things are likely to continue higher unless they start making some changes, okay, which can come out of nowhere. All Powell has to do is mention a couple of words, like we might do this, and then you'll see a change. So just something to keep in mind. Right now, I'm anticipating the dollar bear to continue if these charts continue to look like this, which means the euro and the pound may turn into longs. So I would hold off on the dollar franc, and let's take a look at dollar Canadian. I have to update this chart. That's not the right trade information. We had a more recent trade which reached targets. So that trade right there, this one got stopped out. So I need to update that. Sorry about that. But this one was behaving nicely. This pair is very difficult to trade, but we had the higher low here. This one is not as sensitive to the dollar as the franc is, right? The dollar franc looks pretty much like the dollar index, I guess because of the euro weight. But the dollar Canadian sort of does its own thing more often, maybe because it's affected by different variables. So again, this looks like it should be shaping up for a higher low, and it should be a long, okay, in theory. But with that dollar situation, like I said, also we cannot ignore the fact that this thing keeps making lower highs, and this could just be one giant lower high. That's what this could be. We'll know that confirmation if it takes out this low over here. which is possible. So the best thing to do right now with these is stay away from them, okay? And if you're going to play forex, I would try the euro and the pound on the long side. Let's just take a look at the pound. Again, I'm not making any specific trade calls here, but this is what I'm anticipating. This was one of the emails, one of the charts I put in my email that I sent out to our members. That's what I'm anticipating for the pound. Okay, I drew the little price action thing there with the line, and I'm looking for like a pullback and a higher low. That's what I'm looking for. If we get something like that, I want to be long the pound. Okay, we have these inflection points right here. What is that? The 26.95 area in those high 26s. Those are high. It's a high probability location for the pound, especially relative to this structure. All right, so that's the outlook for forex. I just wanted to give that to you because we had a request. And also, real quick, before I get to your stocks and your symbols, I just want to mention oil. We had a couple of mentions. Powell mentioned oil, energy. We recently missed a short that Andrew had been talking about, but we're going to look for a continuation. So let's talk about oil real quick. This is WTI, COUSD. This is the Owanda chart. This actually, you know what? Hold on. I don't like this chart because this is the one that's not as accurate. Let me see. USD, WTI. I want to get the forex.com chart. Is this it? Yeah, there it is. The one with the negative price action back here. Okay. Owanda erased that for some reason. So I like to see reality. Anyway, so let's take a look at this situation because keep in mind, the stock market tends to be in line with oil, right? The stock market's been going higher and higher and higher, and so has oil. I guess it's the energy sector of the S&P, right? That's going to affect the S&P is very heavily weighted in energy. So all the energy stocks, right? Now, we have a lower high that's developed here. This is tricky though. I mean, so we have a lower high, but remember, the broader recent momentum is still bullish. So while this could be a very short-term short, like maybe for a swing trade, maybe try to see if this thing tests the low here, it may be worthwhile for that. But at the same time, I would be looking for the failed low to go long because this thing could be a consolidation, okay? It could be with this range low back here. What is that? 36, basically the 36 area, and the range high at 43.5. If it's just gyrating between those two levels, or maybe slightly lower, which will lure a lot of shorts, okay, it may be a very nice long opportunity. There's an inflection point right there at 34.5 or 34.25, around there, which coincides with this gap back here too. So just something to keep in mind going further out. So over the very short term, even as like a day trade type of thing, sure, I can see the short side, but I also see the long side. Just something to keep in mind, okay? If that energy sector stays hot and all that other stuff, I mean, this thing is probably going to just consolidate and break higher, similar to gold, especially in the face of a weak dollar, because oil likes a weak dollar. Anything that trades against the dollar likes a weak dollar. All right, so that's it for me. I just pretty much wanted to, those are the things I wanted to analyze. Now let me get to your stuff. Wow, I've been talking for too long. A half hour is too long for my analysis. Let me get to your symbols. And by the way, real quick, if you're new to Greenbridge Investing, please make sure to check out our website at greenbridgeinvesting.com. We have swing trade signals by text and by email, portfolio management ideas in a chat room, which we're always looking to improve. That's why I sent out that survey to our members. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel here. If you like the channel, please like my video. If you like it, it really means a lot to me. And if you can share this video with your social network or your friends, that would also be a very big help to us as well. All right, so with that being said, let's get into what you guys want to see. So DJ mentions VLO. VLO, obviously Valero, an energy stock, and getting beat up. Like VLO, Valero here, it's interesting because for a while, right, it had this nice bullish structure, but it's just been correcting, right, with these lower highs, and now it's pushing. This is a dramatic move for this thing. It's got a gap in there, and that's ugly, okay? So, excuse me, as far as longs, I would stay away from this. There's no reason to go long right now. You are at an attractive location, sure, but you're fighting structure here, right? All I see are lower highs, and this is a lower low. This is not a failed low. A failed low would be something like this back here because it's pretty close to the low before it, okay? This is dramatic. This is what I like to call a decisive low. The market is sure it wants to go lower. I don't see any recovery candle there, and it's got a gap on top of it. So step aside on this thing, wait for stability. That's what I would do at this point. In order for this thing to start proving itself, and look, I'm sure they have good fundamentals. I believe they pay dividends and all that other stuff. But as a swing trade, you want momentum to reverse, and that needs to take out this, at least one of these lower highs to start, which would be 45.5, okay, at least. So that's what I think of Valero right now. Let me see. So, okay, so DJ was saying looks like a double bottom. Yeah, so it has some ways to go, like you said. So I would like to add some for long term. Okay, well, like I said, so if you're going to play the fundamental side, which Andrew's very big into that, and this obviously is not a garbage company. When you have situations like this, these are buying opportunities for long term, but you just have to be prepared for this thing to go lower. So you could step into it like this right now and just be prepared for pain, or you could wait for some stability at least if you want to have less pain. You could take a small bite and that kind of thing and try to average into a position, but obviously you have to believe in the company and believe that at some point they're going to reverse, because right now the chart says it's ugly. Okay, so for the short term, not a long term, yeah. But but the chart just doesn't agree yet. So that's you have to have that vision. You have to be able to believe in it that much and manage your risk in that way. Okay. So TZ, I got you. I'm gonna make sure I look into that. Now you said you sent a couple of days ago. Okay. TZ, by the way, can you just tell me like what time you sent that email by any chance? All right. So DJ, right? So we talked about the election. So Pow says tech. Let's see. Powell comes up with some good ones too here. Let's see tech. He's the one that he mentioned Reggie, and I called Reggie as Trade of the Week the other day. When I researched it, it was before the breakout, and then we had our podcast, and the thing was like breaking out. I'm like, oh man. The next day it was even higher. Forget it. We missed this thing. So we don't always catch them. Especially I put a limit order below the market, so that thing is just on its way. We never were able to get into that. So tech resources. This is interesting. Nice bullish structure here. I like the recent price action. I like this sharp move is nice. Right now, let's see. What do we have going on here? Let's put on some inflection points. We got one here. Let me see where else we got one. We have one here, right about here. Okay, and those are probably the most relevant ones right now. We have one around here too. So, okay, so when you put the inflection points on the chart, it really adds a lot to the perspective. While this could be a higher low, it's a tough spot, right? You're in the middle of 2 points. It may test that higher point and break out. I mean, in theory, that's what it should do. But just like I was showing you that chart earlier on which one was it? I think it was it I forget which one it was. I think it was NIO maybe? I don't remember now. But it was in the middle. It was in the middle of its range, okay? And you're probably better off waiting, in terms of probability anyway. If you want a higher probability swing trade, you're better off waiting for this level if it can test it. And that level is around the 12, I'd say 12.5 area, something like that. Again, there's no guarantee that the market will test. But if it tests, that's an opportunity to consider. Of course, you want to see confirmation. That's the higher probability play. That does not mean it won't go from here, okay? It very well can. It's just the reward risk and everything else is much less attractive in the middle. So, like I was saying with that, I think it was OPRX, the breakout one, you can, if you like this stock and you think this higher low is going to stay intact, which is at 1388, basically the higher 13s, then you can go in smaller. Okay, that's the more reasonable thing to do, because if it turns and goes lower, you're not going to be as in pain, for one. And when you're a strong hand like that, you can handle the move, especially if it's a fake out. Most of this game has to do with psychology. If you're afraid, if you have too much size on and you're worried and you're emotional about the position because the loss looks too ugly, you're more likely to bang it out at the worst price. That's an emotional thing, okay? So you need to be a strong hand, and one way to do that is you can adjust your size so that you're confident. That's a really important thing. A lot has nothing to do with charts, okay? So thanks for bringing up tech. I like it. It's just I'd like to see a better price, okay? These cheap stocks too, by the way, I don't know if this one has options, but if it does, you know, options are a nice way to play these as well, especially if they pop, like this kind of move here. They pop and you have some out of the money calls. That's where you could spend like a small amount of money, but control a larger position, not have to use leverage, and if it works, it's a home run. That's the advantage to long options because your risk is limited and the potential is high. Now keep in mind, time works against you. So, you know, you may be tempted to buy a front month option and say, oh, you know, this option is only 10 cents. I'm going to buy 1,000 of them. I'm going to buy, you know, 10 of them, 20 of them. Chances are that option is going to be worthless. So you need to buy time on these things. The more time you can buy, the better. You know, 3 to 6 months is usually a good amount of time because if it wastes time or if it goes against you, you can get out and recover a good portion of your premium, okay, instead of watching it just melt to zero. All right, so thanks for bringing that up. Definitely on the radar. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? CYRX, okay, let's take a look. CYRX, CY, and I have to go over Bitcoin too. CYRX and some altcoins. Make sure I don't forget. Okay. Interesting. So nice pop again. Pow is into these things. Maybe that's why he calls himself Pow. That's a Pow move right there. Now, let's see. Let me put the inflection points on the chart. So I see one here in this area. I see this area right there. And let's look back a little bit. Anyone further back? No, I don't see it. I don't see any relevant ones that are nearby. Okay. Well, we have one way up here. Okay, so right now at this point, we do have a lower high that's established. Okay, today we have an ugly candle, so not a good candle if you're long. I see a potential double bottom situation right here. Again, this is too early to buy into, although you have an attractive location here at 43 1/4. Nice location in something that's generally strong. Okay. This structure is definitely in play, and this bearish movement is just correcting it. Okay, cool, no problem. So at some point, this bullish structure should reassert itself, right? That's what we're looking for. At this moment, this thing might go lower. So what you want to see here is tomorrow or the next day, especially going, you know, after NFP, this would be nice to see, is an inside bar like that, and then the next day you take out the high of that. That would be one scenario. Another scenario would be the failed low. It tests lower, gives you a pin bar or something, and then the following day takes out the high of that. Those would be buy signals, okay? Where at least your reward risk would make sense and your potential would make sense. Now, if you take such a buy signal, keep in mind, you're still going against some of this recent bearish momentum, and it could fail before it takes out this resistance here at 49 or basically 50. It needs to take that up. If you get long and you watch this thing start to go and you're like, all right, cool, I got the bottom, and it gives you a hard time at that 50 level, then that's where you really should start reducing risk or, you know, locking in some profit or something, because it really should clear. If the broader structure is going to reassert itself, it should have no problem clearing that resistance, okay? So just something to keep in mind. I like this, and I'm going to keep this on the radar as well. Thank you for pointing this one out, Pow. So looking at 36 area for price action long, right? So yeah, you got it. You got the right idea. So DJ says tech $18 call, February 21, 85 cents. Excuse me, tech 85 cents for an $18 call. Okay, so $18 is, let's look where $18 is. It's way up here. Okay, $18 call. And you can get that for, so it'll cost you $85 to control 100 shares. And you have all the way till February for this thing to do its thing. Okay, now keep in mind, it doesn't have to get all the way to $18. If it gets halfway there, that call will most likely double or maybe even triple without even getting to the strike price if it can do it quickly, meaning like it does it by November or something, excuse me, then you're in good shape. So that's 85 cents. So now if you're wrong and this thing just wastes time or just goes lower, then the most you can lose is $85 per 100 shares or per contract that you buy. That's the nice thing about options. So if this thing has some negative news and it gaps to like, 5, then the most you're out is $85. Okay, while a stockholder has to sit through, take all that pain. Now they're caught in that. What are you going to do with that? That's the nice thing about options. Okay, so anyway, thank you for bringing that up, DJ. Very interesting. I'm definitely interested in more options plays as well because there's a lot of potential there. So thank you. All right, so OMG. All right, cool, Chris. So let's do this. Let's take a look at our Bitcoin trade real quick, okay? Because this thing got stopped out. And by the way, if you have any other symbols, please share them in the chat while I go through this. I was supposed to mention Bitcoin before and I forgot, so I'm going to do it now. So we called Bitcoin and we also sent out a Monero trade and a Link trade the other night. Bitcoin was activated, Chainlink was not, and Monero was. Monero reached 2 targets, okay? But now look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin tried to go. It's been a little noisy. This was a tough spot because it could possibly turn into a lower high or it can just break, right? And now look, it chose the lower high route. As you can see, I drew 2 lines here because this location is basically a 50-50 location. There's no way to know which way the market's going to choose. Okay, now you had the little high or low developing earlier and there was no follow through. So it doesn't matter why. All that matters is how it behaves next. So we were stopped out of this. Now let me tell you something. Stops are very good. I know people don't like them because you're accepting a loss, but let me tell you, taking that loss, that small loss, is much better than getting caught in a move without a stop and saying, oh yeah, right, this thing's just faking out, and then getting caught in something like this, which is very possible. Okay, so stops are a good thing. We can always get back in. So if this thing can generate a higher low somewhere in this area, an inside bar, we'll be open to getting right back in, no problem. Keep in mind, Bitcoin is consolidating, okay? We have a lower high, but we also have a higher low. That's typically what a consolidation is, a series of lower highs and higher lows. At some point, it's got to break that consolidation. Now, we suspect that it will break to the higher side because the broader structure is bullish, okay? There's nothing bearish about this. And what this will also do is it will lure many shorts who are watching their 30-minute charts or their 1-hour charts and their oscillators. Oh, this thing's a short. Okay, fine. On your 1-hour chart it is. But on this bigger picture, it's not. So we'll be looking for buying opportunities because that's what the bigger picture says. And that's the time frame that we trade on with swing trades. We're not taking day trades. There's nothing wrong with small time frames as long as you use them appropriately. So here we are. We'll look for a new reversal around the 10.5 area if the market wants to deliver one. It's too early right now. If this bearish momentum follows through, then we're looking at the 98.50 or whatever this inflection point is right here for a double bottom or failed low situation. This would be a very high probability location, and we'd be very interested in the swing trade long there, okay? Because that's where you usually get everyone. At this point, keep in mind, if you follow online communities and all this stuff and all the gurus, at this point, I'm telling you, everyone's going to be calling for a short. Okay, they're going to say, oh, this thing's going to 3,000 again, blah, blah, blah. Some news came out, whatever it is. You cannot pay attention to all the chatter. You must pay attention to the level and how price behaves around the level. If price delivers a bullish pin bar or something bullish around here, it's a long. At least it's worth a try as a long, okay? Because if that thing bounces, now you're going to have all those shorts in it, and they're going to get squeezed, right? And that's what leads to the next breakout. So just something to keep in mind. and I'm trying to give you the perspective in advance, because when it's all taking place, it's very easy to lose sight of that or lose your mind because you're watching stuff on Twitter. Okay. Oh, nice, Chris. So there's nothing wrong with that. If you're watching your smaller time frame and you know how to trade that appropriately, nothing wrong with shorting it. We don't short it, but that's there's definitely opportunities there as long as you keep it within proportion. The mistake people make is they see the short signal, they short it, but then they're expecting Bitcoin to go to 8,000 or 9,000 like in the next day or two or something, and that's where it gets unreasonable and why they get caught. Okay, so you have to keep everything within proportion. Nice job. Okay, so that's Bitcoin. Let me talk real quick about XMR, Monero. Okay, look at this. So this thing actually touched 2 of our targets. We got in this thing on Sunday night as well, touched 2 of our targets. And what's interesting, the reason why I even mentioned this, because I mentioned this to Andrew, I'm like, we got to call Monero. I'm not a big fan of Monero. But the reason why I liked it was because it's not following Bitcoin. Okay, as you can see, Bitcoin was kind of floundering there and this thing popped. So this thing is acting relatively strong. This thing is poised to outperform. So yeah, it's pulling back right now and so is Bitcoin. Okay, fine. But the fact that it was able to make a move like this without Bitcoin doing anything dramatic means it's got a lot of potential to outperform. And I have a target in this thing. Let's see if you can see that on this chart. Do I have it on this chart? I projected a target on this thing. I don't have it down here. In the 160s. Okay, I have it. It's on a different chart. Let me see if I could find that. I don't have it right here. 160s, okay, or 130s. Somewhere in, I'm sorry, 130s I meant to say. So it can do it. Okay? Not now. Obviously it's likely to pull back a bit. And I showed Monero on the email that I sent out. It's likely to pull back a little to that 98 area, and that would be a new place to pick up some more, or enter a new swing trade long if you were not in this one. All right, so I just wanted to mention that. No, DJ, I have not bought that one yet. Is that thing moving without me? Oh no, it's still fooling around. Okay, no, I've been slow to get into this thing, but I still like it as a potential options trade. Very aggressive though. It's very aggressive. I mean, I don't like the lower high, but I do like if this double bottom can hold. That might be a good one. I want to see how NFP comes out tomorrow as well. Okay, so let me see what else we have here. OMG. All right, so Chris, OMG USD. So this one's had some action recently, right? This one is another one that's been sort of trying to outperform Bitcoin with this move here. I like that move. The thing is, now it's starting to hesitate a bit. So that's how these things are, right? They go in and out of play. I like the potential. So on a situation like this, I would look for the higher low. If you're not in it, I would look for the higher low around the 3.25 area to see if it delivers that, followed by some sort of confirmation, or the failed low, okay, which is what? 2.5. Those would be the inflection points right now. It may not go that low, but if it can, those would be locations to look for opportunities. If you're in this thing right now, I mean, theoretically, you should lock in something if you have it from a good price. It never hurts to reduce some risk. You are at this inflection point here. But with this type of momentum and the way this thing is behaving, I wouldn't be surprised to see this little consolidation basically turn out to be a continuation pattern, and you see another powerful leg higher. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So if you're in it, I would at least try to hold on to some. Okay, it's always a good habit to take something off the table. If you have some green and it starts to hesitate like this, it's a good idea, because if it gives it all back, you're like, what did I just give it all back for? But I would also try to hold on to some. Okay, otherwise, if you're not in it, I would look to see if one of these inflection points can be delivered by the market. Otherwise, the next best thing to do would be to wait for the breakout, which would be here, which would be 374. So that thing starts pushing like 385 or 4. That's the breakout trade. Those are a little riskier because you have to take more risk and you have to hope that that momentum continues. And usually it's a good idea to get out of them quicker if that momentum does not continue. So you have to be nimble on those. But I like it as a long. You do have this higher low in place. All you have to wait for is another higher low. I mean, that would be the best scenario. Oh, you caught the bottom? Nice. So, I mean, I hope, Chris, you locked in something. That would be the right thing to do. And then try to let it run. Let this thing do its job, because it certainly has potential. And like I said, if this becomes a continuation pattern and breaks higher, you'll be happy that you held on to some. Okay? So like when I say sell, it's a good idea to sell some, like maybe 10 or 15% of your position, something small. So at least you locked something in at a high. It's a good habit. All right, so that's OMG. Let me see. So POW, I usually try to keep it to 2 tickets, but you may also want to look at SNDR. Looks like pin bar. Okay, it's no problem. Let's see, SNDR. No, POW comes up with some good ones. I mean, that's where I got Reggie from, pretty much. So let's see, what's the deal here? Nice trend, okay? I like this, nice to see. No question that's bullish, okay? Inflection points. This is what we have. Okay, we have one over here. That's not really a major one. We have one up here. So we're in between some here. We're at a potential failed low situation, double bottom area. I like the location. Let's see, what price is that? This thing closed at 24.90. So the low is 24.5. Risk would be defined by basically 24.25, or maybe even 24 if you want to give it a little more room. You do have a pin bar. Market's closed now. You do have a pin bar. That's confirmation. So you have a nice structure here. This is structure. You have this basically this double bottom. You have this pin bar. And now, which is the setup. Now you just need to see a break of the high, which would be tomorrow, $25. So, again, if NFP is a big non-event, which, often it is, but tomorrow might be dramatic because, of reasons like I mentioned before, you may see buy signals in something like this. I think it's not a bad idea. You're certainly not buying the top. You're buying a pullback and you're buying structure, okay, with limited risk. The potential on something like this, you're looking at, what is this here? 26.25. So if you're buying this at the high of 25, or maybe 25.15, something like that, you're looking at maybe $1. So risking $1 to try to make $1, or risking less than $1, I think, on this one. If you're buying it at 25, yeah, you can actually theoretically risk less than $1, which is great. You're looking for $1 or maybe a little over $1, your first target, and then you try to let this thing run and see if it can go further. Okay, you probably have some hesitation up in here, this old minor support around the high 26s. So you have some potential target areas that make sense in terms of reward risk. Okay, so not a bad idea, assuming this thing tries for the high. If it breaks out higher, great. Then you try to let that thing go and hold on to some. But these are the more reasonable inflection points if this thing bounces nicely. Now, keep in mind, we need the NASDAQ and the S&P to cooperate on most stocks. Not all stocks. Some of these stocks do their own thing. They're very particular to news events and stuff like that. But for the most part, these things will be affected by the S&P. Actually, gets a good question, DJ. Since I'm doing it today, then no, tomorrow I won't. I usually don't do back-to-back. I didn't stream yesterday, so that's why I'm streaming today. I try to, if I can do 3 days a week, I try, but I try to at least get 2 days a week in there if I can. So I will not be doing one tomorrow. Thank you for asking. So that's the stock. I like this stock, POW. I like this. I mean, this might be next week's trade of the week. Maybe we'll just hire you to make calls, and I can take a break or something because I like the good stock. Anyway, yeah. So definitely on the radar here, and I like that as a that thing breaks today's high tomorrow, then you have yourself a buy signal. All right, just. Obviously, that would be after 9:30. NFP comes out at 8:30, so we should know our answer as far as NFP. If NFP comes out good, you're going to see the market rally probably right away. Let me just point out the SPX here. Oh wow, that's nice to know, pal. Thanks. Look at this thing, right? Look at the S&P 500. Look how it closed. All right, this thing closed up 29 points. This is the CFD, so it's not going to be exactly the futures, but it's the structure is all I'm interested in here. 33.50, what is this? 33.78 is the close. That's a pretty good close for this thing. Not only that, it established a higher low over here, which, you know, we had this doji, this long stem doji situation, which could be very, very tough intraday. But look how we basically recovered the long tail, right? This is a sign of strength, is my point. So going into NFP, that's interesting. Now we're going back to this inflection point at the 3,400 area. If NFP comes out good, then I'm expecting this thing to be pushing higher, okay? That means, excuse me, we should see this by lunchtime tomorrow. This thing should be holding these highs or pushing higher. If NFP surprises in a negative way, then I would be looking for the low of today's candle, 33.48, to get taken out. If that's taken out, that's not good, okay? So that would then set the tone for early next week, where you may see a test of, you know, lower prices, particularly in this area. What is the low of this candle here? 3,300 area. That would set the tone for something like that. You better believe shorts will pile in to something like that. They can't wait to short something like that. So just something to keep in mind. I mentioned this on the S&P, and I'm going to mention the NASDAQ here real quick, is because you need to be prepared and make adjustments. Oh, look at that, on the outcome of NFP. Look at that. That's leading the way here, okay? Much better looking than the S&P. It blew through this level. Look at this. Look at this. This is what I was expecting, you know, S&P to perform tomorrow. Nice, decisive, strong close, okay? Now, it can give it back overnight, sure, but this is how it closes. So that's pretty strong. I would expect higher prices, okay, based on this. So we'll see. But just keep that in mind. If these things fail tomorrow and start taking out today's low, that changes things. And you have to adjust with your stocks. So all those buy signals I just talked about, you have to be very careful with them because these are what lead. These will put a lot of pressure on those stocks, okay, if these fail. So, oh, cool, Powell, I appreciate that. So DJ, I know this will be gambling, but what do you think about buy SPY puts? All right, well, that is definitely gambling because there's no way, like there's nothing bearish going on right now. So obviously the puts are going to be super cheap. So you have that in your favor, but you're betting on, here's what you're betting on. Not only are you betting just on a random outcome, hoping that NFP surprises in a negative way, you're also betting against the US government, which is usually not a good idea. Because they're going to do things as much as they can to make things come out their way. Okay, so it's probably like if you want to play that game, I would go small, but it's probably, you know, you just have a lot working against you. Let's put it that way. So that's not the first thing I would think. I would like to buy puts, like, you know where I would buy puts, like in that type of scenario? In a much better location. Now you do have the potential failed high area here. You are in that area, okay? So that's not bad. But for one, I'd want NFP to be out of the way if I was going to do it, because if we're going to fail, then I want to see this thing start to fail at 3 p.m. or 3:30. That's where I'd want to see the bearish activity happening. If this thing is not going to go anywhere, that would be a good try for the puts. Or this thing pops up into this area, okay? Not tomorrow, but over the next week or something, it pops up into here, because that's a proportional inflection point in that area, which is what, the 12, almost 12,000 in that area. That if you want to play that game, this would be a good place to try, because the chances of it turning here are greater. But the best thing to do is wait for some evidence of a turn, right? You don't obviously you're not going to catch this, right? You're not going to catch this, but you can at least get, you know, it's going to be very hard to sell a put on these candles here and be like, oh yeah, because I know it's going to pull back, because you could have also thought that back here too. Oh yeah, it's going to pull back, right? And yeah, eventually it pulled back, but you had to take a lot of pain in that. And if you didn't time those puts right, it's just not worthwhile. So wait at least for some sort of confirmation. The confirmation here would have been the break of this low, the 12,173 low, the previous day's low to that red candle. So you could look for something like that on these candles as well. So either for the failed high, you know, after tomorrow's NFP, see if you get the closing, the weakness, or let this thing go to a much more probable inflection point and wait for that sign as well. That's how, if I was going to gamble, at least I'd have some things in my favor. Otherwise, just a completely, you know, you might as well be at the roulette table. Okay. So thanks for bringing that one up, DJ. And we're always looking up, like Andrew likes to take some of those aggressive trades. So, you know, he'd be another one if you want to ask that question too. I'd be interested to hear what he has to say. All right, everyone. So I think I've been talking, I have a feeling I've been talking for a really long time. Oh, okay, only an hour. That's about average. Because as you know, I like to talk for 2 or 3 hours. Anyway, do I have any more questions? Great participation, everyone. I really appreciate everyone's questions and the symbols that they're asking for here, because it helps to bring perspective to everyone that's watching and get a better idea of how to build confidence and to adjust to their own positions as the market delivers new information. All right, so if I don't have any more questions, I just want to say, if you're new to Greenbridge, please make sure to check out our website at greenbridgeinvesting.com. We have a swing trade signal service by text and by email. We also have portfolio management ideas and a chat room, which we're always looking to improve. We have perspective and insight and charts in there each day. Also here, I'm going to give you this link for those of you that are watching. If you haven't been there yet, this is our pricing page. So like DJ and all you guys know this, but that's our link right there to our pricing page. So if anyone's interested in our membership, you could check it out there. Also, if you're new to the channel here, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get an email notification every time I stream one of these. Also, when we do our Talking Markets show, you'll get the notification for that as well. And if you like my video, please press the like button. And also, if you can, share it with your friends on your social network, because that would really mean a lot and be very helpful. Okay, so we'd really appreciate that. Thank you in advance. All right, everyone. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all again for joining me and spending an hour with me today. I will see you all in the chat room. No problem, Chris. I'm glad to provide it, and I'm glad you find it helpful. I will see you all tomorrow in the chat room for those of you that are in there. And hey, guys, we have a free chat room too. I know Pao is in there. So, and we have a couple other people that show up in there once in a while. Come to our free chat room. I know it's not the best technology, and that's some of the feedback I got, which I really appreciate, because I'm going to do something about that, okay? But anyway, we do have a free chat room. Come on in and ask questions. We may not answer them right away, but hey, we see them, we answer them. All right, anyway, so I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you again for joining me, and I will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and watch out for NFP tomorrow. I'll talk to you then. Okay, thank you.